the Lila, Chapter 1. The Invitation. Jillian, hurry up, honey. You don't want to miss the bus on the first day of school.
Why can't you drive me to school like the other mommies?
A soft voice posed from the top of the stairwell. Dot's heart sank as the pain in her neck and shoulders gripped with vice-like pressure. She hated her situation and the fallout upon her entire family of a life-limiting illness. How could she explain to her daughter, when she really had no idea herself, what had happened to her life in the last few months? "I've been through that, Jilly." Her words much sharper than the actual empathy she was feeling in her heart. "Get your backpack on and hustle, now, so you won't be late." At 40 inches tall, but barely 40 pounds, Jillian looked much like a stick caricature in contrast to her fast food, full-figured first-grade classmates. As she schlepped down the hardwood stairs, bouncing her book bag on each plank behind her, the sun danced on the top of Jillian's blonde hair. Had her head not been cast down, you would have seen the brilliance of her blue eyes, and on any other day, a smile that would melt your soul. The online shopping spree for back-to-school clothes was a success this year, in that all of the skirts, crop pants, and sleeveless tanks fit her tiny frame to a T. So often was the case that buying clothes sight unseen became an iterative process between UPS deliveries and Whoops returns. Dot had become a pro at searching for slick deals that had not only free shipping, but prepaid postage policies if the item needed to be exchanged. The black cotton interlock skirt and red polka dot baby doll top made Jillian look a bit like Minnie Mouse. Or perhaps it was the butterfly barrette on the side of her hair. There was something decidedly disproportionate between her tiny frame and the backpack loaded with books that she had already received at registration the week before. Dot pulled open the heavy oak door and kissed her munchkin goodbye as she choked back a tear of regret. "Have a great first day, Jilly Bean!" Without a peep or turning back over her shoulder, little Jillian stared at the sidewalk and headed slowly down the cul-de-sac. Dot closed the door, but continued to watch through the glass of a tiny wood-spindled window as her little one rounded the corner. Dot's spirit lifted when she saw another little person waving for Jillian to wait up, and the two headed south together towards the school bus stop. Dot was proud that her daughter was so well-centered and full of self-confidence. Jillian's announcement to the family that she had decided to become a vegetarian last year, after checking a book out at the school library called "Cows Are Vegetarians," was certainly a shock, but not really a surprise. Her level of compassion and wisdom seemed well beyond her years, and Dot often commented that her daughter must have a very old soul. Perhaps it was the incarnate of the two family matriarchs that were her namesake. Miss Jillian B. was named after Dot's husband's mother, Jillian, and Dot's favorite great-aunt B. As you can imagine, such a big name for such a tiny frame was fodder for a wide array of nicknames. JB, Jelly Bean, Jumping Bean, Baby B, Jilly, Miss Jill, and these from her loving parents and family friends, not to mention the creative minds of mean-spirited kinders. But that seems to be a rite of passage regardless of your family name tree. As Dot made her way back upstairs and into bed, she could feel the blood pooling in her limbs and tummy. She had only been standing up perhaps 10 minutes, yet the tachycardia from the POTS, postural, orthostatic, tachycardia syndrome, made her feel like she had finished a 90-minute cardio kickboxing class. Her body ached as she sat on the corner of her mattress and pulled her knees up to her chest. The tinnitus in her ears was deafening, and the coat hanger pain in her shoulders caused a tear to well up in her eye. There was laundry to do, floors to sweep, bathrooms to clean, and a garden that was indistinguishable from the weeds that had taken over her herbs. But these would all have to wait for another day, or another family member to tackle, because this morning would be filled yet again with the pain of a chronic illness, Dot reached for the little blue cooler that her husband had packed for her the night before and sipped some aloe vera juice before lying down and closing her eyes as she waited for the morning crud to pass. Startled by the answering machine greeting, Dot wondered why she hadn't heard the first two rings of the downstairs phone. The sound of the dial tone after the obligatory beep let her know that it was probably another spam solicitor. Her three sleeping companions didn't seem to notice the voice machine squawk, save for one very deep breath and a nasal exhale from her old dog that was as powerful as any she had heard in formal hatha yoga. Dot liked to refer to her Mexican hairless crew as her rescue dogs, not because she adopted them from the shelter, which she did, but because they rescued her every day. The warmth of their bodies braced up on each side of her torso helped to mitigate the pain in Dot's bones while she slept. Dalai Lama was the youngest of the pair, and the first to notice Dot's eyes were open and greeted her with a gently wagging tail that was still underneath the bed covers. "Good morning, Miss Dolly." Dot glanced up at the clock, and seeing that it was noon, she corrected herself. "Or rather, good afternoon. Let's see about getting downstairs and fix us all something to eat." While the hairless cat enjoyed her leisure and to be left alone a bit from the brood, the dogs circled Dot as she steadied herself against the handrail at the top of the stairs. "I know you're worried about me, girls, but I'm not walking the high wire. I'm pretty sure that I'll make it downstairs in one piece." Just then, Dot's heart rate monitor began to beep, and she noticed her pulse had gone above 150. "Okay, maybe we'll take a little break here on the landing before we go to the kitchen." The older dog slipped her head underneath Dot's hand and steadied her back legs against the wall so that Dot could lean against her as she slid slowly down to the floor. "Thanks, Buddha. I appreciate your help, you wise old girl." Buddha and Dalai Lama both rested their bodies against Dot. Perhaps they could smell the chemical changes from the hyperadrenergic surge that Dot experienced several times a day. Or maybe they had a sixth sense that told them when she was about to flare. Whatever it was, they had both become her beacons and were always at her side, or back, or front, or shoulder, or feet, as the case may be. On a good day, Dot could make it up and down the stairs in a single trip, but there were not many good days in a row. Despite how predictable the disorder had become, Dot was still frustrated at how far she was from her remembered self. With a slight and shallow sigh, Dot stood up again and walked gently down the rest of the stairs. Once in the kitchen, she sat on the cool stone tile next to the refrigerator. Her cutting board and food processor were already on the floor. All of her spices and bowls had been moved to ground level, where she could access everything from the relative comfort of a squat. Her thighs and ankles were very strong, and Dot could hover on her heels for decidedly longer than she could possibly stand. Creative adaptation at its finest. Dot pulled the refrigerator door open and spied a loaf of homemade spelt bread that Jillian helped her make on Sunday. She grabbed the jar of fresh Brazil nut butter and made herself a small snack that would tide her over for the next couple of hours. "Okay, let's get something for you good girls." Dot stood up and walked over to the sunken family room where the dogs' bowls were waiting to be filled. Having a multi-level home was decidedly unpractical, and though she only used her purple wheelchair when she would go out of the house, it made even simple tasks that much more of a hardship on her orthostatically challenged frame.